A woman seeks peace and takes a summer job in a remote village, unaware that people want more from her than her professional skills. A hooded man walked through the woods and soon reached a road where a bus was waiting. When the driver found him, he got in the car and drove off with him. Elsewhere, Irina is throwing things out of her apartment. She also learns that she was not accepted for the summer job she applied for. The next day, the teacher noticed that Irina could not concentrate and called her to ask about the production costs. She vehemently argues that she doesn't care because companies are more focused on cost than people's well-being. She believes her society robs them of their freedom by promising them to retire and take their last breath without any guarantee that they will live that long. Her rant caused tension in the class. Afterwards, her friend Mia of Irina told her to stop blaming herself for her own misfortunes. Instead, she should focus on her summer job, but Irina reveals she was turned down by her company and kicked her ex-boyfriend out, so she must find another way to pay her rent. After school, Irina goes jogging, unaware that she is being watched by a stranger. He then watched her in her apartment, but when she looked he was gone. Someone rings the doorbell as Irina is in the shower. All she saw was a letter lying outside. Soon after, Irina receives an invitation to the village to escape her busy life and boards a bus to Kirshaw. While she is waiting, she calls Mia, who thinks her trip is silly. Irina, she defends, is a summer job where she receives tutoring while working at a textile manufacturer. Meanwhile, a stranger to her was sitting on the bus watching her. Irina falls asleep on her journey and she wakes up again upon her arrival. Outside, the driver was praising the stranger's nice catch. When Irina comes out, the strange man introduces himself as Parvati. He was also on his way to Kirshaw, which was 10 kilometers away, on foot, so they decided to go together. On the way she said she couldn't find anything about the place on the internet. Pelty assures her that he will not go to Hillbilly Village. They chose to hunt and grow food to protect Mother Nature. If Irina wants rest, she should not disturb nature either. They soon reach a village, where they are met by Maya and her daughter Marla. Her mother tells her that Marla used to live in the city too, but she got tired of the big world and came back. Another villager, Siri, invites Irina to dinner, but she asks her to put her things away first. Malia's grandmother complains to her that Irina doesn't know that in Rome she has to do the same as the Romans. Marla assures the old lady that it will take only a few more minutes to show the guests to her room. Nevertheless, her grandmother complains that the wide world has done nothing for the young woman, but Tilly assures her that the guests will learn. Inside, Marla takes Irina to the room they share. She advises the woman to listen to her elders, because they are older and know how to behave. Irina claims the world is constantly changing, but her peers claim the world is not. Soon Irina joins the villagers for a meal. Before her meal, her grandmother leads a prayer of thanksgiving for deliverance from those who oppose the Creator and the oppression of the world. She also appreciates the opportunity to live with her family, accepting that she doesn't want anything they can't do. After her meal, Irina took Marla for her walk, and she said she liked that her prayers focused on her thanks rather than on Jesus. Marla points out that most people today cannot appreciate anything without satisfying their ego. She guides Irina to the village and points to another house occupied by a man named Mono, who she insists prefers to be alone. Ms. Marla also takes them to a goat for wool. Irina likes the idea that she does a hands-on job instead of studying theory and marketing at school. Later, she hears noises coming from Mono's house, so Irina goes outside. It scared her, so she went back to her room. In the morning Irina checks her mobile phone, but finds that there is no signal in the village. During breakfast, Siri suddenly asks about her family. Irina says her parents divorced 6 years ago because they stopped loving each other, but her grandmother insists her love never ends. She just changes. Irina says her father must have 2 sons with her new wife, so her grandmother must be prolific in their family, she adds. When she announces that Irina is not dating, Parvati explains to her elders that, like Hannah, who got a job there before her, many young people study before having her children. Curious, Irina asks about her, but Maya says she doesn't know where she will be after she leaves. Her job for Irina is to help Parvati pick mushrooms, as her summer vacation starts later this week. Before her departure she noticed a young woman with her baby in her arms. Purdy explains that Hilja's baby never recovered after falling ill. The two then enter the forest, where Parvati tells her which mushrooms are poisonous. Suddenly, Irina hears the sound of a horn in the distance, which Parvati explains is coming from her hunter. He shares that horns attract animals to make hunting easier. Irina scoffs at her idea that she charms animals before killing them, but Purdy insists it is more compassionate. That afternoon, Irina goes to the sauna with Maria. There her companions confess that they left town after her miscarriage. She was afraid to rot, so she returned to the village. Malia learns that urban people cannot coexist with nature, and Irina agrees, as most people do not appreciate the environment. Marla then asked why Irina accepted her invitation. She admitted that she had to run away and think twice. She begins her rant about her ex-boyfriend, but Marla shuts her up when Mono becomes addicted to such talk. Her curious Irina worries about Mono, and Maria admits that Mono is handsome. This causes her to assume that Marla is having an affair with him, and the woman flees in shame. As they walked back, they heard moans coming from Mono's hut, and Maria told Irina to leave alone before entering the hut. At that moment, the hunters finally return and Irina sees them happily disemboweling the raccoons. It bothers her. The next day, while Irina is cradling a baby in the woods, she dreams of hunters attacking her with guns. Suddenly blood was oozing out of her baby clothes and she looked to see a dead raccoon in her arms. That morning, Irina was swimming in a pond while being watched by two men who were watching her. Luckily they leave her alone. Meanwhile, Maya, Siri, Peruti, and her grandmother are in the chapel. Maya worries about her daughter, but Thili reminds her that Marla has great sins to overcome. Maya, she defends, would have suffered more if her grandson had lived. When Siri doubted this, her mother asks someone named Inkari to check. Suddenly Peruti prophesies that her migratory bird will be driven into something, but her bull will protect her. The bird then chooses to leave and the bear helps her with her decision. He explains that Irina will lead them to change, but her grandmother worries about inviting strangers to the village. Maya frightened Hannah so much, she assures her, that she suddenly learned not to talk about babies. Instead, they allow Severai to charm Irina, so she chooses to remain. Marla then points out Irina, Severai and Jalmari. There the newcomers noticed men who were watching them in the pond. Irina changes her subject and wonders why Purdy didn't join the hunt. Malia explains that everyone has their own responsibility, including how to educate the youth of the village. Irina finds this strange because there are no children around her. The men approached them, and Severai said that she was happy to see Irina, because nowadays women do not try to do women's work. When Irina asks what it means, Jalmari replies that it means having a child. Severai immediately punched him for saying so. Irina disagrees with this, but Severai insists it is true. Before her situation escalates, Pelti tells her men to leave her alone. After the two leave, Marla expresses her affection for Severai, but Irina, with her sarcasm, suggests that her companion should meet with Severai. That night, while reading in her room, Irina was annoyed by the flickering of the lamp. Mirla explains that the electricity is not constant there, but the electricians are doing their best. She complains that Irina isn't good enough yet, but Marla wonders what she's doing in the city when she's in trouble. Irina points out that they are educated and motivated, but when someone doesn't do their job well, they look for someone else who can. She believes Ms. Marla is fine if she likes her job, but she insists most people don't like their job. Guests complain about people who expect society to take care of them because they believe everyone is responsible for themselves. This leads Mirla to ask about people who cannot live without help. Irina revealed that there is a cure for their symptoms, but that they will be hospitalized if they don't recover, so she avoids walking among others. Later that night, Irina dreams of a pale-faced young woman who has lost one of her eyes. She follows her to her attic, where her woman identifies herself as Kurtu. She points to the nearby barn where her mother is staying and asks Irina to help. Then Mr. Kurtu touched her opponent's cheek, suddenly grabbed her by the throat and threatened to kill her like he did to her mother if she didn't help. The next day, Irina finds that Severai and Jalmari are leaving the Kurtu barn where her mother is said to be, and she sneaks inside. She noticed that she had an empty seat in the car. The two men suddenly returned, so Irina asked her where Kurtu's mother was. The men laugh as they reveal that Kurtu is dead, but for some unexplained reason they are not moving forward. Severai added that Kurtu was bored and drowned by her mother and her soul wants to teach her mother a lesson. Irina undauntedly asks Kurtu where her mother is, but Severai hunts her down. Luckily, Siri intervenes and takes Irina to her summer job. After that, the women start rolling the pom-poms, which Irina believes is a suitable activity for kindergarten children and psychiatric patients. Siri emphasizes that her work is valuable because it binds threads together, just as nature unites men and women. This causes the women and Purdy to sing about their belief that the love spun from Kirsha binds souls to that righteous land. Frightened, Irina hurried away. While her others pursue her, Irina calls them fools because she thinks she spends her summer making pom-poms. Despite her scolding, she doesn't notice the noise coming from Mono's barn. Suddenly, someone breaks in from her hut and Irina is shocked when she finally encounters Mono and attacks her while the rest of her just watch. Severai and Jimrari come and remove Mono from the guests. Terrified, Irina crawls to her axe that Severai has dropped, but Mono throws them off and grabs them again. When a man tries to undress him, Mirla gets his attention and she exposes herself to distract him. Mono chases after Marla as her upset Irina cries. Musan explains that Mono was a strong kid, so he worked hard to produce electricity. It keeps him busy and keeps him out of trouble. Seeing that they don't care what happens, Irina calls them sick and decides to leave. However, Peruti reveals that the next bus won't leave until tomorrow, and Irina has no choice but to wait. Later, Marla notices Irina trying to use her phone again, but to no avail. She serves tea, but Irina asks her to leave her alone. When Marla comments, "They don't leave sad people alone," the woman sarcastically points out that instead they lock up the mentally ill. She reminds her of how horrible the men in the city are, but Irina still wants to go home to her. When they return home, she finds Severai and Jalmari wrestling on the floor. When Irina sees this, she suspects that they are secret lovers, but Marla defends them by saying that they are only in love because they are family. Irina suddenly feels dizzy as the villagers, including the bus driver, gather around her. After Marla mixes something in her tea, she hugs Irina and promises her that this village is the place where she loves her. Irina breaks down in tears at the end, and Purdy explains that Severai will give her a child so that Kirsha can give her a fresh start. Later, when Irina is forced into her marriage to Severai, she dresses in white. She exclaims that she did not go to Kirsia to marry her, but Severai reminds her that she came to work and that it is her woman's job to bear her children. When she hears this, Irina accuses her of forcing the villagers and the way she treats Mono to be inhumane. Angered by her rant, Severai approaches the woman, but Siri reminds him not to touch her until she is married. Severai insists that the bride should be ready and tries to capture Irina. This caused Siri to hit him on the head, causing everyone else in the room to get up. Siri remembers Parvati's prophecy that the bull will protect the birds and realizes it was only for Irina. Therefore, young women must decide whether to stay or leave. Because of this, they let her go, so Irina runs away and passes in front of Hilja, who is actually her doll. While Severai screams in anger, Irina grabs a cardigan outside and finds Marla washing her own blood with Mono chained up next to her. She was terrified and the woman fled into the woods. Irina, without her shoes, she rushes off while Severai and the others search for her. After her long journey, Irina found her mobile phone inside a cardigan and tried to call for her help. However, she hears Severai approaching, so she runs away. While chasing her, Jalmari teases Severai that he cannot get a bride because he does not pray. As the other men report Irina's whereabouts, Severai slaps her friend for it. In another, a woman is knocked unconscious by a hooded figure. While she is unconscious, she dreams that the villagers are watching Mono kill another Irina. When she wakes up, she meets a blind woman who mistakes her for Hannah. Irina realizes that the woman is Inkari, the mother of Kurtug, whose eyes have been gouged out and placed in a bottle to hang around her neck. She asks if Irina killed her daughter, but she defends that Inkari was born with many anomalies in Kurtug, which she accepted until she began to despise her lifestyle. Kurtug came up with the idea after Marla returned and taught her about society. Kurtug got into a situation where she only wanted to improve her own village and didn't care about her, so Inkari did what she had to do. However, the villagers felt it was wrong to waste their lives in this way. Suddenly hearing the voices of Jalmari and Severai nearby, Irina lies to be Hannah and the villagers accuse her of hiding Severai's new bride. She insists that Inkari does not intend to harm her, and Irina promises to help her return to the village with her help. Eventually the men arrive and she tells Inkari that Irina may send her police to Kirsha. Inkari claims that Irina never existed and asks Severai to bring Irina back to her village. She claims that her daughter wanted to destroy the village, but she denies that the men have not eaten nature in their eyes. They believe eyes are windows to the soul. Therefore, even if nature does not want to consume it, it is still filthy. To prove their worth, the Inkari lay their wrinkled eyeballs on the ground when rodents approach. But not eating, the male walks away. The rodent climbs onto Irina's hand, which was hidden in Inkari's tent. The men who heard this flinched. Before they can investigate, Inkari eats her own eye to prove that nature can still forgive her. Disgusted, Severai orders the woman to bring Irina back and discusses whether it is okay to have her Irina in her home. After they leave, Inkari insists that she find Irina, unaware that Irina has already spoken. She wonders why Irina should help her villagers, but she insists that Inkari asks for forgiveness because her villagers still love her. Irina then asks Severai what will happen to her bride after she has a child, and she speculates that Inkari will have her tongue cut out so she can't report to her villagers. Having got the idea, Irina suggests that the bride depart and Inkari agrees to take her to find a woman. Suddenly, Mia called Irina, and Irina's phone rang. She pretends to be Hannah and gets a call and she tells Kirsha what happened to her. However, Inkari is not deceived by this and approaches the frightened woman and realizes who she is. Confused Mir finds her suspicious when Inkari grabs Irina and cuts out her tongue. End. Conclusion: trapped in a remote village with disturbing practices, Irina's life hangs in the balance as she encounters the vengeful Inkari. The unsettling atmosphere and mysterious circumstances leave readers wondering about Irina's fate and the true nature of the village.